wake up, shit shower, brush your teeth, drain your cup.
Which other songwriter would pen a song about wanting to beat the shit out of their co-workers with a sellotape dispenser? Stella Donnelly? Ah, fair enough, mate. Richard fucking Dawson seems to fucking have one of the most fucking baffling fucking track records of the fucking decade. I'm serious when I say that this entire discog has twists and turns at every direction, and that's including his synth-punk band. With every release it felt like he was twisting and stretching the limits of traditional English folk music until it snapped. It always felt tense, and a big attribution of that is not just the trajectory of his songwriting, where his chord changes will swirl you into an unexpected position in the framework, but also his voice, which screeches and howls enough to shatter the glass that protects this framework, leaving that framework naked and exposed to the outside world, cold, shivering, longing for soup. At points, Dawson's music will sound like the vision of somebody on the verge of a dreadful anxiety attack, no matter the setting or timeline. In 2017, Peasant was obviously inspired by medieval folklore, and in many scenes extremely dismal and ill in telling of the shortcomings of that time. The stories were rich, Dawson. A community in a perpetual state of volcanic panic about where to point fingers to shift the blame, with careless attention aimed in all directions like that prick that keeps messing up the floor of every male's bathroom. However, Dawson's attention to how a song progresses made it more than just ye olde yarns. There was a beautiful and eerie duality to the sheer fact that it's a community in the first place, giving you a sense of human warmth that cloaks even the darkest moments of the record like harvested skin. At some point I'm just gonna have to let go of Peasant and talk about this new album 2020, but what if I told you that 2020 is just Peasant in disguise? The same album twice? Well, not quite. Because 2020 updates the holistic community at odds with itself approach to the present year, and because it's such a familiarly bleak landscape, it's hard to spot the glimpses of hope there in the first place, even if they're just brief segments of the tedious and depressing day-to-day plan. For instance, Dawson ends a song about the pissy and annoying football crowds with a very wholesome question about what to have for lunch. Always the little glimmer of hope during the day, cause everyone gotta eat. That song's ending is hilarious given how wistful and conclusive the melody sounds as it draws to a close, probably suited for a warrior who has been reunited with their damsel. But the song actually ends by asking if you want fish and chips for tea. I won't front on this one, no album has made me laugh so hard ever since the Teal album. It's not just Dawson's detailed wry descriptions of a mundane day in the life of Britain, it's how the music itself is such an unfitting vessel for any of these stories to be carried within, like storing Tim Tams in an AK-47. The biggest difference between this and Peasant is the overblown rock instrumentation, which in itself sounds like a comfy part of the Satire, like it's including the UK indie rock sound in its holistic, modernist mural. The first song, Civil Servant, sounds so beefy and epic, and the chorus explodes in this ore-blazed fury, and yet Dawson uses it to sing about how he doesn't want to go back to work, because it's draining the spirit out of his body, having to pretend to laugh at his colleagues' jokes.
I don't wanna go into work this morning.
Even how far he pushes his voice enhances the bleak hilarity, although it probably tests the listener the most on this album, really reaching a grating vocal level somewhere between Gripping Polystyrene and Aziz Ansari. But when he yells about how he doesn't want to go back to that Venom's nest, it actually sounds like he's tearfully yelling out in pain. Even one of the most orally testing tracks on the album endears me because of how falsely affectionate it sounds. The instrumental paces along smittenly like a soppy love song, but imagine then hearing Dawson's voice almost break trying to reach the upper echelon of his voice, singing something like, "It was a heart emoji," puts into perspective how ridiculous the whole prospect even is. That song, by the way, is about finding out you're getting cheated on by snooping at your partner's texts.
With a heart emoji, a heart emoji.
Really, all things on this album that I thought were tacky upon the first listen are really just another hilarious piece of the satire. Yes, that includes the vocoder on Jogging. It's so ham-fisted, it sounds like something from a corny glam rock tune, but imagine drag-dropping that on this beefy, jagged-edged rock song. Oh, what a beauty. At some point it might sound like I'm forcing myself to enjoy it. I mean, I can see why it would sound like a crock of shit, but don't get it mistaken, this album is so good. It's like a black humid cartoon, and the soundtrack is catchy as hell. The melodies are so enchanting, but Dawson will sing literally anything to them. It's like he wrote the song's melody first, and then crammed whatever bloody lyrics he wanted into it, like my place at a Korean barbecue. It's a funny funny approach to songwriting, one that'll either strike you as tacky, or not tacky enough to detract from the hysterical vision that Dawson has of YouTube conspiracy channels, and on perhaps the most disturbing display of black humour that the album has to offer, the working conditions at the Amazon Fulfilment Centre. Whatever the weather, and do believe there's some shit weather described on this album, Richard Dawson's music remains anxious and lonely. It's just that this time it's in a neon labyrinth, chilling with a dead dog in an alleyway. Pretty grim, I know. You'll have to get used to that.